Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Hunt With You podcast. I'm Luke, hosting today. I got old Kerri McAllister sitting here with me. What's going on, man?
What's up, dude? I'm excited for this one.
Oh yeah. So our guest today is a guy I've been kind of met through social, probably a couple years ago. I know this year we met, and very similar backgrounds to Kerri and I. Still active duty, actually, stationed at Fort Carson, but has been in the hunting industry for several years now, which we'll unpack. But we've got Mike Herne. What's going on, man?
What's up, guys? Stoked to be here.
Yeah, dude. Good to have you on. I feel like we've talked about this a couple of times, so it's good to finally line it out. But so let's just kind of talk about a little bit of your background with the military and then the hunting space and how you kind of pulled all this together prior to transition, which is something I obviously tried to do as well, kind of different paths within that.
Yeah, same but different. Well, yeah, so I'm still active duty. I got my retirement is approved.
Oh yeah.
Got a draft DD
Congrats.
and everything, so that's exciting. And I hate my new boss, so it's pretty great because I'm just wilding out. But yeah, career military guy, infantryman. Always grew up hunting and fishing, but like really got like serious. So, like hunting was something I grew up doing, right? It was something everybody did first day of deer season. You go
Where are you
out,
from?
like, upstate New York originally. So up there, everyone would go out opening day, smoke a buck or button buck or a doe, whatever. If it was brown, it was down, skip school, and then you'd be back to school and sports. And then after I joined the Army, I didn't get to hunt. I was stationed in Vicenza, Italy, and then at good old Fayetteville, North Carolina, and didn't really get back into it till I went to Fort Benning. They had a really good hunting program on base, and that's when I was like, "This is great." Like, I don't know if it was the deployments that kind of like the deployments, and then kind of the crossover between how you plan for a hunt and scout and do reconnaissance and all that stuff. But I got hooked on it, and I was like, "Man, it'd be cool to make a living like that." And that's those that was the early days of like Cam Haynes, right? So I took one look at that guy. I'm like, well, I'm never gonna be that dude. He's not even human, right? Like, I'm not running a marathon a day. I don't think I could if I wanted to. But yeah, so I was like, I gotta figure something out, right? And so I just started networking and trying to figure out where I fit in. I liked writing, so writing was kind of my foot in the door in the industry. I sent a couple of articles to Black Rifle Coffee Company right as Matt Best and Evan Hafer were starting to get into hunting, oh crap, they were just starting to figure out there's a whole hunting industry. And so I was Black Rifle's original outdoor writer. And then it just kind of, I used writing to kind of build my network and get to where I am today, which is a year out from retiring. I work at the NCO Academy on Fort Carson. And then I do community marketing for
Dude, that's awesome, man. And yeah, dude, you're totally right, dude. Like the transition or the carryover from what you did, on deployments and as your job as an infantryman going into the woods, dude, it was so huge. Cause I'm like you, man. Well, not like you. I didn't grow up hunting. I started hunting after I'd been in the military a while, but like just being able to connect those dots of like that whole, it's basically you're doing troop leading procedures, man, before you go out some bullets, dude. And it's super awesome, super helpful to help with that transition stuff, dude. And I think it's amazing that you've got all this stuff kind of lined up. You've got a huge outdoor industry resume before you even take off the uniform, man. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I kind of tailored. It's funny because I've got buddies, right? You met my roommate Lance. He's a Green Beret. You're a Green Beret. One of my best friends, Kyle, is a First Sergeant in 75th Ranger Regiment. And when Kyle and I met and became close, we were working at Army Human Resources Command. We were talent managers there, branch managers, right? The guy that everybody hates. But we connected over hunting and then got along real well and built a good friendship. But Kyle was training up to go to RASP. So Kyle was an outsider to 75th, and he was getting ready to go to Ranger Assessment and Selection. And he's like, man, you should do this with me. Like, this is, and I was like, well, it's like something. I came in the Army with a Ranger contract, and I thought the 173rd patch looked cooler. And I found out that they had a deployment coming up at airborne school, and I was like, man, like, stay here and like go get my ass kicked for another 2 months, or like go get in the fight. So I went and I didn't know what I was doing, right? Anything. I had no clue. But so I dropped the Ranger contract and went to the 173rd, and I'm glad I did. My career was amazing. I'm super happy with how my career turned out. But Kyle went as a sergeant first class as an E7, right? Like as a kind of senior guy, went and assessed and got selected, and he wanted me to do it. And that's right when I started writing for Black Rifle. And I was like, man, and at that point I was mature enough. And, I had friends like Lance and guys that were in the 75th and guys that were, had gone to SFAS and joined the special forces. And I was like, I will not have the time to do what I want to do. And I think I can build what I want to do. Like, I think I could do this while still being in the Army. Like, I can manage it. And I knew, like, just with the jobs that you guys do, like or Green Berets or 75th, anything special operations, it's way fucking cooler than what I'm doing right now in the Army. That's 1,000% for sure. But the flip side is I get guys like Kyle calling me, who's doing like the stuff that I joined the Army to do, right? And telling me I'm living his dream. So it's pretty cool to have that reflected back to you.
Yeah, it's something I notice is there's always that like dichotomy of like you want to be here, but then the guy that's there might want to be where you are. And I think that's part of us. Just had this conversation with a buddy about how it's just kind of human nature when you're looking at it, and you kind of got to just choose that path and set those goals. And what I would tell guys, and we have a lot of vets and active duty guys that listen to this, is like start planning now. Whether you're staying in for 10, 25, whatever, you can set the table so then when you can get out, you're like ready to eat. Like I'm in such a better position than if I got out trying to start a company now. Because I started it 5 years ago, like,
yep.
And there's different ways. Like I would highly recommend, actually, we were talking right before we hit record. I think your path is probably the better path because you're learning about the industry. I'm still figuring it the fuck out with this massive, it's not massive, but it's a lead weight around my neck with building a company. But, there's nothing wrong with just trying to position yourself to move into the industry, but don't wait. Go to shows, go to events, talk to companies, talk to brands, show your value. If you like to write, if you like to talk, like on a podcast, like start now. And that way, when you're transitioning out, you already have the time put in, the relationships built, and the skill set that's at least somewhat developed. So then when you jump in full time, you're ready to go. You're not just trying to figure it out, once that paycheck stops.
Yeah, you're not showing up with, well, that's exactly it. And the only thing I would add to that is I'm sure, and I thought this way for a long time. Like I thought, all I got to do is have I got an Instagram and I kill stuff occasionally. Like I should be in the hunting industry, right? Like I kill stuff and I post on Instagram, but like, I'm not an influencer. I figured out, I mean, maybe like on certain people, whatever, but like I figured out like that path wasn't the path I want, right? Like I didn't want to just be a talking head on Instagram. So that's why I started writing and submitting articles to publications. And then I liked writing about gear. I like gear. I like having nice gear. So all of a sudden, if I wrote a company that had something I liked or wanted to try, and I was like, hey, I write for Black Rifle Coffee. I cover most of their gear content. Would you mind sending me this or giving me a discount? And then I write about their gear. Next thing you know, I'm building a relationship with their PR director or their marketing director. And then because I learned really quick when I started writing, Aaron Snyder, all of our friend, he was big when he got into photography. I was like, man, I'll never do that. That shit's gay. Like what kind of fairies like taking pictures with a camera with sunsets? Like that ain't me. I'm trying to pop lungs, and then as I started writing, I'm like, man, I learned real quick that if I wrote a shitty article, but I had really good pictures, editors would buy my article because they can't fix your pictures. And if your pictures are good, they want to publish those. They can fix your words. They can 1,000% polish a turd when it comes to a written article. Right. So, So I picked up a camera and started learning that. And then I started learning a little bit of videography. So I learned a bunch of different tools, and was building a network, which I didn't know what I was doing at the time. But ultimately it kind of pushed me in the direction of marketing, or like community marketing, because I have these skills and these tools now in my tool bag, but I also have a pretty good network within like the hunting space from writing, right? From being a writer, I know the guys, I pretty much, most of the people, like the key players I know at other brands, are because I wrote articles about those brands or about their products or used their products and wrote about them before I ever started the role I'm in now, which is kind of like business development and brand relationship, as well as building community, because all of us came from a very community based, like the guys we worked with were our family, right? When we leave, we're kind of left without that a little bit, right? I think you guys at Hunt Lift Eat have done a great job of building community. But that's a big, like, building. You can have a brand, but if the brand doesn't have a community behind it, what is it, right? Um, so yeah, all that stuff kind of came together by happenstance. But I had a lot. That was a really long way of saying that, like, I very quickly realized, like, just having an iPhone and shooting a deer and taking a picture with it and posting it to Instagram wasn't going to get me anywhere. I needed to learn skills like writing, photography, videography that were marketable to a brand. And then through those skills and using them and developing them, I built a network which was also marketable to a brand. So
No, that's all huge, and that's, I see it so much with, especially like the younger guys and some older guys, like on the forums or just within like different chats, or guys that I know personally. They're always complaining because they're like, I kill all these animals. I should be in the industry. Like, and I just try to tell them like that, like everybody kills animals. Like that's like the
yeah,
easiest thing. It's not hard to find people that'll do a grip and grin with your hat on. Like,
yeah,
it's not, right. It's the backside skill sets. It's the nuanced differences, how to, between like a shitty reel and a good reel, and like,
mm-hmm.
or that photograph, and then what you're doing in post. It's not just about the picture. It's like the skills to be able to take that picture and make it actually professional, and or being able to write above a third grade reading level. Because
Yeah.
most, I mean, gosh, most of the guys that we've just lost the art of writing so much, and it's all important. And that's what like, if you're trying to get in to the hunting industry, which, also a newsflash, the hunting industry isn't all about hunting. It's all about business. And then you get to hunt some, and the more you go, you get to do some cool stuff. Like I've had some cool experiences because of it, but that's a small percentage. I think guys think that like, oh, you just get paid to hunt. Literally nobody gets paid to hunt.
Nobody.
Cam doesn't get paid to hunt. Cam gets paid because he has 2 million Instagram followers and knows how to market and leverage social and tell his story. And
Yep.
so it's the skills you need to develop if you're trying to get into it. But no, I mean, it's funny. There's a lot of parallels, even like back to when you were talking about growing up being kind of a casual hunter. And I was the exact same way. Like I hunted during hunting season, but I never hunted public land, never hunted outside of like my family farm. And then getting to the Army, and like, it was the deployments, like missing hunting season made me appreciate it so much more. And then same thing, I got down to binning, and that's when I fired up, and got really into it. I started at Campbell a little bit, but then fired it up at binning and started hitting it hard. Because binning's sweet, you can hunt year round.
Year round. Like, my ability to kill, like, spot and stalk and not just shoot stuff out of a tree stand, 1,000% from pig hunting on bedding with a bow.
Yep.
When I was a kid, I had a bow my entire life growing up, and I probably shot that thing 5 times between when I got it and I graduated high school. I was not into bow hunting. So bow hunting came later because I wanted more of a challenge, like after getting shot at by folks and realizing, like, I shot my first buck on bedding, and I was like, all right, cool. Like, I didn't get that, like, burst of adrenaline. So I was like, all right, how can I up the game? And then I decided to try bow hunting. But yeah.
I get it now. So this season's I've killed some animals back east with a bow, but I've been a very casual bow hunter, and really just picked it up so I could hunt longer. This season was my first year chasing elk with a bow, I fucked up my shot. So I freaked out and misranged him. But I had my buddy called a bull into 14 yards. He was like right on top of me. I didn't get an adrenaline rush like that at any point in my entire career. Like it was fucking unreal, dude. That bull coming up, and like I'd ranged a rock at 30 and he was closer. So I was like 25. He was at 14 and like hit him high, but like, you know, he lived luckily. But it was just like that experience. I was like, I'm hooked. Like it's totally, you just don't get that kind of physiological response from anything else. Like I shot my mule deer with a rifle at 500 and I literally felt nothing. It was just like literally grocery shopping. Like I got my ass kicked trying to kill one with a bow. Like, let me just put this one down. And now I'm like, all I'm thinking about is archery next year. So I this year, the season unlocked it for me. I'm all in. So
I love it.
My bow is set up now. And when we're at 3D shoots, I will be shooting. I went to 9 3D shoots this year, didn't shoot at a single one. So I'm in next year.
Yeah. That's exactly it though. Right. Like I'm fortunate. Like I changed my whole career to hunt elk. Like blame Cam Haynes for that because I didn't even know elk were a fucking thing. Can I say that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even know elk were a thing. Like didn't know they existed. Right. I grew up on the East Coast, upstate New York, whitetail. Had no idea like really about elk. Didn't know there was an industry. And Cam, obviously, when I picked up a bow, started looking at YouTube on how to shoot your bow better. And Cam Haynes comes up. And that's like when he was making all those hype reels about being like the best predator he could be and like
that Under Armour one that he had with the wolf and he's running, like that's still one of the coolest like mainstream hunting commercials ever.
Yeah. But
dude, I'm such a novice.
I heard an elk bugle. First time I heard an elk bugle was like on Cam's YouTube, and I'm like, what is that? And then I saw that animal. I'm like, man, sounds like a dinosaur. It's freaking massive like that. And you can call them. Like I'm not sitting in a tree stand looking at the other 300 trees around me, wondering if I got in the right one, you know, coming up with an excuse to move. Cause that's what I do when I'm in a tree stand. Man, that tree over there would have been better.
Every time.
So I freaking was leaving Benning. I was a drill sergeant at Benning and I was dead set on going back to the 82nd Airborne Division because there's no way I want to be a leg, right? And I was like, man, but if I go to Fort Carson, I can elk hunt. So I went to Fort Carson as the first time outside of the airborne community in 12 years, like my entire career, right? So 15 years at that point. And I think maybe I could be a little bit off, but anyways, I come out here to elk hunt, don't get to elk hunt until my first season. Then I got to get out there and it was this heartbreak after like, this is freaking hard, like 8 miles a day, freaking getting so close and then screwing it up. I managed to kill a bull on the last night that I was able to hunt of my first elk season, but I did everything wrong in that season that you could have done wrong. And every time I did it wrong, I was convinced. I was like, that was my one shot and it's over. And then I got a second shot and screwed that up. And I'm like, well, nobody ever gets 2 shots out here and over the counter. So now it's definitely over now. And then I got lucky and pulled one out. But hearing you talk about like you get it now. Like,
oh yeah,
that is the perfect story and probably not very different from mine or Kerri's or a lot of other people that like were casual bow hunters or weren't casual hunters or just casual hunters. And then I think it's also the type of guy we are too, but like that failure haunts you. Like you want another shot. And
I'm still thinking about that bull.
It's not a video game, right? You don't get to respawn and like come back in. Like you got to wait a whole nother year. So you that year, like
you just obsessed over it.
Yeah. You didn't shoot at a single 3D shoot or only shot at one. Now you're like, I got 9 and I'm going to be on the course. This year, last year I killed a giant, biggest bull in my career, but like pure luck that I took out both his knees with my first shot. I was hunting with a single pin sight. This year I hunted with a 3-pin sight, and basically with that single pin, it has 2 indicators on it. So I could get the same kind of, I basically had the same distance. I had a 20 pin and a 40 pin, and I could have pin gapped on an elk anywhere in between. Right. But, since I had that 3-pin on, I had 20, 30, 40, but because I screwed up last year with my broadheads in practice mode because I shoot the severs. I went to our local 3D range and I walked every yardage and figured out like if it was outside of me screwing up the range estimation, like if I had a range on a bull at 50 and I couldn't adjust that sight, where did I have to hold to hit it? Like because last year screwed me up because I screwed that up bad. So I spent an entire day out there just practicing for that.
Yeah, that's a
like
big. Sorry, go ahead, Kerri.
I was saying, yeah, I try to practice the same thing, man. Pin gap, and I actually went away from a dialed type sight, man. I may or a slider. I may go back, but I'm shooting a 5-pin fixed. So I've been doing a lot of pin gapping, and I'm comfortable up to 65. Now I'm still on the East Coast, so it's a lot of whitetail, and I'm not shooting anything over 40, but I'm comfortable on targets up to 65 with my, yeah.
And it's in that whole thing. I mean, we're getting way off the topic, but that whole thing's all about what you're comfortable with and then like what you practice. The way I look at it, a single pin sight, with the exception of the single pin, I would hunt with the single pin that I hunted with last year. I'm probably going to hunt with that single pin again this year because it cleans up my sight picture and it's easier. And I have those 3 pins, but for a long time I hunted with a 5-pin slider because I'm trying to eliminate, it's just got a former officer in here. I'm calling you out, Luke. You're eliminating risk, right? It's risk reduction. So if I only have a single pin sight and it's only got that 1 pin and I have to move it to 30, 40, whatever, when an animal's that close, there's a big risk. I'm adding a whole extra movement on top of, did I have to click my rangefinder on top of getting my bow, my release on my D-loop, my bow drawn back? Like I'm adding a whole nother step to that process. So I'm a big proponent for like, I shot with, the first slider sight I got was a 5. I've only started shooting a single pin or shot single pins in like the last 2 years. Everything before that was always a 4 or a 5-pin mover. And because at like 60 yards, you generally there's some room for error where you can get away with the movement and you have time to adjust your sight. But anything closer, I don't want to have to reach up and touch something to be able to execute. I want to be able to draw my bow, put the right pin on there and make a good shot.
Yeah, I went with it's a dual pin, this Spot Hog slider, but I learned quickly. Well, one was I just wasn't prepared for this season. I let the business like completely take over and I didn't do my preparation. So I didn't have my tapes on my sight when I started hunting. I was just shooting pins and I was like, well, I'm good to 30.
Yeah.
But then my first stalk on a mule deer, I had a dead to rights at 50 and I'd been practicing shooting my bubble, but I was like, I don't want to really bubble shoot this thing. I was in tall sagebrush, tight, window. And I'm like, I don't want to shoot this thing with the bubble. So immediately went back to camp, spent the whole rest of the midday getting my sights dialed, and then just started like working out all that. So like without touching my sight now, because I learned these lessons in real time this season, it was like 20 to 50. I don't have to move my sight on something, a large mule deer that's, within 40 or an elk out to 50. Like I would bubble shoot an elk at 50 with my setup. And so it's like exactly that. It's how do I eliminate the variables? How do I eliminate all the extra movement, all these things, and then practice with my gear? I shot more in camp this hunting season because I realized how deficient I was than I've shot probably my entire life put together. Just arrows. And then at further distance. And then when I hunted for damn near the whole month of September. But when I did go back to Colorado, I went to Cheyenne Mountain, shooting out to 80, like making sure, getting that further distance, because once you start shooting at 80, 50 seems real close.
Yeah.
And so like just getting that repetition in, it was huge for me. I need to pick my bow back up since rifle season kicked off. I haven't shot it, but I need to pick that back up because it makes a huge difference just in your like mental, your headspace on what you're running through. And that's like, I kind of half blacked out when that bull was coming in. But I watched the video back and I still went through my whole shot process like the right way. My anchor point was tight. Everything was good.
You just went into autopilot and don't remember it.
I just gap shot him instead of freaking, I could have shot him any other way. And that was something that this was a tip that my buddy Dan had told Carter. Carter had killed one earlier. Dan didn't tell me. And I'm like, that would have been good to know ahead of time. But this was a tip that I really liked that I should have done, was if you're in those closer distances and you don't exactly know the range, hold your 20 like high lung, mid lung, and then you can put then your 30s right at the heart. And so then you're just, especially on an animal the size of a bull elk, like now
Yeah.
you get this huge kill box. So just split the difference, and you're going to be within inside that. If I had just done that instead of going center lung, and then also don't hug the fucking shoulder. I don't know why I did that, but it seems to be really common because I had two other buddies make the same mistake this year.
Yeah, they got big lungs.
Yeah, buddy killed one. We were quartering it up, and I'm looking at its lungs, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I could have aimed 9 inches off of that shoulder and had plenty of like. It's not a whitetail. Like you can back off almost like the midriff of that animal, and still have. Yeah, totally went off.
And if you hit that shoulder, you're probably not going to be happy like with the result. So
no,
my first hunting season, same thing happened. I missed because I couldn't range, and it was my range estimation that was off, shot over its back, and then had a bull dead to right at 35 yards. And I can still hear that arrow hit that scapula. Like I can still hear that. It was loud and defeating. And I was like, man, that was my second chance. Right. So I thought for sure I wasn't going to get one. And then, much like you, I had a bull. He came in, I called him in, but all my pins were on him. Like when I drew back, I was like, all my pins are on him. He ended up being at 24 yards, but like all my pins were covering him, and I didn't know where he was. So I did just that. I was like, all right, just all these pins are gonna on something vital right now. It's gonna be somewhere in there. So
yeah, it's kind of a cheat code. Like it eliminates that, because it's. I mean, even one, they're so forgiving, and that's like another thing coming from whitetail. Like he was that close. I was just so scared to range him, but I could have because I was pretty exposed at that point. But they're like T-Rexes. Like if you don't move fast, you've got some wiggle room to be able to get in there. And especially he was honed in on this decoy. My buddy was behind the decoy calling, and he was fucking drooling, lips were curling. He was staring right at that cow. Cool. It was the. And I made so many, like everything you should. And I did the math on this because I was going through and like AAR on myself. If I made 4 big mistakes. If I had made 3 out of the 4, I would have killed that bull. But I made 4 out of 4 and I didn't kill the bull.
Yeah.
So you could eliminate just one of those mistakes, and all 3 of those, I would have still killed it. So I didn't hug the shoulder. If I didn't hug the shoulder, I would have just hit him high long further back. And I mean, I don't need to break it all down, but like, yeah, it was just like you go through the whole thing and you're just like, man, and it's such a game at inches. Say like the mule deer hunting, like hunting mule deer spot and stalk with a bow is one of the hardest things you can do. And it's so fun though. Like when you are getting close to them, like I had so many close encounters. I had a hell of a season. I got more experience this season got passed on 2 or 3 bulls, had several, 2, then had several, that we could have made a play on and didn't. Like just all this interactions, learning how to call, like just getting out there and getting that repetition. Like it was still a hell of a season. My first season out of the Army, I told my buddy, I was like, I wasn't selective necessarily because I wanted to kill a big one. I was selective because I was like, I have a whole month to hunt.
Yeah.
For the first time in my life. Like I have nobody telling me I've got to be back to work on Monday. I'm just going to keep hunting. And like, I fully accepted that I might not punch a tag, and I didn't with my bow, but it was still like the experience it's so key, and putting yourself in good spot. Like I hunted public and private, but I paid a trespass for the private and then hunted public that was next to it, which increased my odds. And a lot of people wear public land with like a badge of honor, which it's cool. And if you can go into OTC and kill a bull, it's something definitely be proud of. But if you're starting out and you can shorten your learning curve and buy a year back by paying some money to get some access, like to me, that's a pretty good investment, because you can spend a lot of money anyways and not have that many encounters. And they don't, like hunting in Wyoming on some private, it's a completely different animal than when I hunted OTC in Colorado. Like
hunting in Wyoming on public is a different. I've never done it, but everybody I know that's hunted.
We called my buddy Ed's bull in 100 yards off the fucking road.
Yeah,
two bulls barreling in. It was fucking crazy. I was like, what is going on? This is not like Colorado at all.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that changes for us. The non-residents have to draw next year. So, for archery.
Yeah,
which
it'll
is kind
probably
of
take a
a
couple years for the animals to settle back down from all the pressure, but
Yeah, but I think there'll still be less pressure
yep.
because I just read the Go Hunt did an article on it, and I read it because I didn't know much beyond it, and they don't have the answer that I was wondering about, which is like how is that going to work for the non-residents? Is it going to be broken down? Is over the counter going to be like 1 or 2 points? Like what's the threshold to get a non-resident in here to hunt? Because that's really what's going to tell how much pressure is going to be out there. But the fact that, like, let's say Kerri has 7 points in Colorado and he comes out here and hunts over the counter every year and buys a point because he's saving up for this unit. Well, now Colorado's out, like Colorado's everybody's backup plan as far as bow hunting elk goes, like everybody's, because unlimited over the counter tags, and it's got the biggest elk herd in the West. So that will really tell. But I think the guys, like, if Kerri had 7 points, right, he's not going to burn 7 points on an over the counter hunt. So now Kerri's not coming to Colorado. So I just wonder how many guys, non-resident bow hunters, are out there that are like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, it'll be a significant portion of them for sure.
Mhm.
I mean, it just got untenable. Like, it wasn't even fun to hunt. Like, you're just calling in other hunters. The elk aren't bugling because they've been conditioned to only bugle at night. And like, it takes, I don't want to, I'm all about public land and like everybody having access. So it's not like I'm sitting here like it should only be me out there, but it gets to a point where it has to be managed to a certain point, and you've got to take care of your residents. Up until this point, there's been no benefit of being a Colorado resident other than an increased draw percentage.
Yeah.
And then the price. But you don't get any extra access. And you're still like, I never got to know a unit in Colorado because I was jumping around. Like, you never know where you're going to hunt.
Mhm.
Now I'm in Wyoming, and it's like, I know I can have my area that's like near, like I can go hunt these hills, these mountains. I can know that ground. I can learn it. And then, I want to branch out and go hunt some other stuff, but I want to get to know an area well so that
Wyoming does a really good job.
Yeah, it's by far the best. Everybody shouldn't. It's cold. It's windy as shit. So don't move up here.
Yeah, they don't. Nobody wants.
But no, I love it.
It's the best managed for hunting for sure.
It's the best decision I've made for.
That's why I started buying preference points, because I've yet to hunt anything out west. So
yeah, it's a different animal out here. It feels like what I thought Western hunting was going to be versus Colorado, which was not quite. I mean, there's pockets of it for sure.
Yeah,
it's hard to get. I mean, you got to go in, or you got to just get lucky, or get into shitty terrain, or hunting closer to the road in Colorado seems to be a good tactic because everybody wants to go deep.
I call it the in between, right? Like, Aaron made backpack hunting popular and cool, so now everybody wants to backpack in 5 miles to elk hunt, and then you got all the old timers that are still going to hunt from the road. But you find those in between areas. That's where I've had the most success. My backpack elk hunts have not been that great, and I kind of stopped backpack elk hunting unless I was going to a draw unit with Aaron. Or we had a plan to backpack hunt a unit I had a tag in. That was my first draw tag. All the bulls I've killed up until this year have been, and it's my smallest bull, but we won't talk about that. Until this year, they've been over the counter, like public land, right? And then this year I had a draw tag, but the few backpack hunts I've done, like, I just burned so much energy getting back there just to run into 5 other guys back there. I'm like, well, now I can either pack all my shit and hike out, or I know, like, I'm hunting with you 5 people. So being able to hunt from the truck and stay mobile and go, 3 miles in usually seems to be the sweet spot. And
the same things happen on the east, man. You've got, like, the mobile hunting has gotten so popular, like, guys are getting way, way deep in the woods, and then there's guys still hunting by the roads. The same thing here, man. Like, a lot of the good gear in the in-between areas.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, some of the, like, Fort Knox, I was stationed at Knox.
Yeah, I'm here now. Knox pissy.
Where are you at?
I live in Vine Grove.
Okay, yeah.
So my wife is one of the career managers.
Oh, nice.
I was born in Knox.
Yeah. What's that?
You're a dependent now?
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
I love it. Good for you. Congratulations.
I go around on posts and tell people, you know who my wife is?
But dude, Knox, like that's some of the best, like those cantonment areas.
Dude, Knox can fucking lick my butt, dude. They've got
I,
such stupid rules, man.
I
They
love.
closed down hunting this week. It's peak rut, and nobody can hunt on Fort Knox this week.
Yeah, I wrote some nasty grams. I mean, Fort Carson does the same thing. Like if for hunting programs, that's why I never really screwed with it because they close it down during the week. But when you can get like on the weekends for those cantonment hunts or the like get out to like the I won't talk about them on here, but I'll tell you about them. But you can get out to some of those. There's some ranges out there that you can get on that are fucking primo.
Yeah.
My buddy, my best friend Kyle is actually going back to Knox. He might end up taking over as the RSOF branch sergeant major. So
Okay,
I'll
nice.
link you up with him when he gets up there.
Yeah, well, I'm gone this summer, man. So
Gone PCSing,
yeah,
moving. Where are you
Yeah.
going next?
hopefully Texas.
Okay. Tejas. Why not Carson?
There's no jobs there for my wife, man.
What's she do?
Critical care nurse.
Okay. Damn, you'd think she'd be able to get that coming out of HRC though. Her
I
one
mean,
like wish list gig.
I keep telling him
Yeah.
that she needs to go do a cross branch and work on the Air Force Base in Cheyenne.
Yeah. Or that.
I keep telling the Army that we need to reopen the base in Helen, Montana. That's where SF started.
Mm,
What the hell, man? Why do we give it back?
Because we only put bases in shitty locations except for Carson.
yeah. Carson is like the nicest spot that we have.
Shittiest fucking units, but the nicest
It's
spot.
terrible. Got off.
Dude, that's a whole nother podcast.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Let's jump into what you're doing now, man. So, and what's going on. There's a lot of big changes. I think everybody, that tracks Aaron saw that he's jumping full time into Born Primitive.
Yep.
You've been working with Born Primitive as their community marketing manager. So, it seems like there's a lot of big plans for Born Primitive Outdoors. What you guys got cooking over there?
Yeah, we've got getting Aaron to come on board with us full time was definitely like how do I call it? It's a big fucking win. I don't know what else to call it. There's a word for it, but having him come on full time was huge. So right now we just launched the podcast. So Aaron's hosting the Born Primitive Outdoor podcast, which first guest was Cam Haynes, and I'll be honest, I kind of stopped listening to hunting podcasts, and I listened to that one. It was good. I was glad I listened to it. So it kind of relit my fire to listen to some hunting podcasts. But so we got the podcast with Aaron coming on board. We're getting ready to kick off school or an academy. We don't know what we're going to call it yet, but the long and short of it is I've helped Aaron teach 2 or 3 different kind of come out, learn how to glass, land navigation, just like cut that learning curve down for people type stuff. So we're launching an academy. We're going to go, we're like onboarding a team to build that out and make it more robust. So we'll have a team of instructors like POI, very military kind of. It's super easy for us because our job is to teach, right?
We just ran our first course, and that was exactly the same thing that we built out a full POI. I mean, it like when I started getting into it, I was like, this is awesome. Like like all the, I'd say 3/4 of our instructors were military, and like everybody was like, this is all the great things about the Army, but like less gay.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly it. But the flip side of that, like through teaching those classes, it's way more fun when someone's paying to learn something. It is way
more engaged.
Yeah, it is way more fun to teach that individual than when I'm trying to give a land nav class to 30 dudes that don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Right. And they still suck at land nav because they're getting paid. Right. So it's super cool, but we're building that out, and then we're just working on some new products for 2025. 2025 is going to be kind of a light product year, but 2026, the stuff we're going to be R&D and testing is going to be a big year. So it's awesome. Having Aaron on board is like really, really lit a fire under the brand's ass. So
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I've been rocking some of your guys' stuff this season. Actually, quite a bit of your guys' stuff, and I'm a huge fan. I think I texted you when I got out of the field in Alaska. Like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, I wore the same pair of pants for 23 straight days, busting through alders and all kinds of shit, man. And they got a little bit of like, you can tell there's some like stains on them.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, man,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
No, the gear's good. And we're constantly dialing it and refining it. And now that like our main line and layering system is complete, we're just gonna start building some more technical pieces, some stuff that guys would want, right? And the one big thing I will say, I'll maybe I shouldn't. I don't let the cat out of the bag. I've seen people say it on the internet already. We're coming out with camo.
Oh
Uh-oh.
yeah.
Uh-oh. Please be the old BDU woodland pattern because I think that'd be the coolest shit
No,
ever.
it's gonna be better than that.
Nothing's better than that.
There is one camo pattern that is better than that,
All right.
and it's
All right.
mossy oak land. So, so we're gonna have some stuff coming next year in mossy oak bottomland. So I'm super stoked on that because there's
Yeah.
been a lot of people. I mean, the brand started as, we want you to be able to wear your clothes. If you're going to pay good money for a pair of technical pants, I don't want to cover it in some ugly camo so that
Yeah.
you look like a weirdo when you walk around downtown or you go on a hike. We kind of like for the low vis kind of hunter, right? But we've been beat up enough and we are a hunting brand, and there's turkeys, like turkey hunting. Lance, my roommate's a big predator hunter, right? So he wears camo during that time. So there's definitely times where camo is applicable, and a lot of hunters like to wear camo. So we're going to start offering it. We just, instead of making up our own camo pattern or doing what everybody else did, I kind of got with the crew and was like, you know what? Like, there's mossy oak bottomland it's you can wear it in the mountains, you can wear it on the plains, you can wear it just about anywhere. It's a legendary pattern, like legendary company, historic, like strong roots in the hunting industry, but a technical clothing company hasn't made any clothing in it. Like,
I was getting ready to say that it's the most popular camo pattern ever.
Ever.
And there's not a single piece of like technical gear in Bottomlands, which is
No,
always
I
blowing my
mean,
mind.
yeah, I think you got like the Nomad line. They make some like synthetics, but it's not really like technical.
It's not mountain style. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
great
So
for whitetail stuff, but like
yeah,
if you're
which,
static, but you're not
but
gonna
yeah,
want
you
to
really can't.
go
You
hump
can
10
go.
miles.
Yeah, you can go to Walmart and buy. You really can't get like
That's what I hunted until about 6 years ago.
Yeah, dude, I love it. So
some Walmart mossy oak denim jeans.
yeah, but all these other companies, they have their own camo pattern. They all made up their own camo pattern. I was like, well, from a marketing perspective, I don't want to have to sell you the pants and the fit and the functionality and then sell you why my camo is better, right?
I was talking to a guy that is in the that space, and he was like, it's a good thing. What did he say? He's like, we don't develop camo patterns for the animals. We develop camo patterns for people.
It is for people. 1,000%.
People, like one of the ugliest camo patterns that I like thought was really silly when I first saw it, Forlow.
Yeah.
So I got to know them on the show circuit, and I got a bunch of their shit. And that one that looks, it's like they're with either above timberline or for like the sage country. Dude, it's the best pattern. It's hideous.
Oh, really?
It
You
works.
like it?
Dude, I was 30 yards from two mule deer. They had no idea I was there in the sagebrush, like waist high sagebrush. And we're like, I was coming up. I thought they had crested over the IV line and was trying to peek over, and they had fed down behind me. And so we were like maneuvering like this. And I like looked behind and I fucking see them, and they didn't even notice me. And I had several times when I was wearing that, like that pattern works. And I know the reason I changed my mind on it was because some of the guys that were setting up the archery courses were wearing it, and they would like walk into the timber and like disappear. And I was like, holy shit. Like, and they tested the shit out of it, but it is hideous. Like,
yeah, it's that's what
for us, it is not an attractive camo pattern.
No,
Even their like their darker one,
say.
I don't like their darker one, but they actually I was talking with some of their folks, and like they put in a shitload of like actual like scientific research into the development of that. This is some free promo for Forlow, but I was impressed.
Did they put some scientific development into this blue camo I'm looking at right here?
Yeah. So when you fall in the water, nobody can find you.
See clear
Yeah.
Oh,
is
is
what
that
it's
that's
called.
their fishing line?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
fishing
So
camos
cool.
always cracked me up.
But yeah, it's fucking ugly. It
Yep,
is
but
ugly.
that works better, and I like. It's just so funny because like we buy camo patterns that we think look cool,
Yeah,
not what
1,000%.
actually works.
Furlough had reached out to me at one point and like kind of wanted to work with me, and this was before Born Primitive, and I was like, man, like I don't like the way your camo looks. Like I'm sure the clothes are great, but
I
gross.
it works. Like I didn't run their darker pattern. I only ran their, but like I was close to a bunch of animals this year, and I could tell a difference.
Yeah,
And camo's fairly negligible anyways. Like I kind of
it
look at it
is.
like scent control. Like it might buy you an extra second, 2, 3
Yeah,
seconds. You
yeah.
know, like because I've seen it with you see you guys hunt whitetails, like that doe will sit there like pick you out, but doesn't know exactly what you are, and will
Mhm.
start doing the head, dropping the head, and trying to because their depths of perception shit. They're trying to figure it out. That's what you're buying. I've killed more shit wearing my underwear on my cabin front porch as have anything else. Like,
Yeah,
like, but so I think it's cool though. Mossy Oaks,
yeah.
like, I've always said that I just don't want to get into technical apparel because the manufacturing and development's a fucking nightmare and it's a money
It's
pit.
yeah,
But if you got the capital, like Born Primitive obviously does, because Bear just gave away $5 million, which is kick ass, by the way. Talk about that a little bit. That was something I
yeah,
thought was super cool.
yeah. So we're coming out with Bottomland. We'll wrap that up.
Yep.
2025. Stay on the lookout because that's good. I'm stoked. Like I wanted to kill my mountain goat this year in Bottomland.
We
Like
got to get to that on the tail end.
Yeah.
So
I thought that would have been cool. But yeah, so this year for Veterans Day, it was Bear's brainchild. He wanted to normally for Veterans Day, we donate all of our profits for the weekend, 100% of them to like Tunnels to Tower Foundation, Navy SEAL Foundation. There's a bunch of nonprofits that we kind of already have in our Rolodex that we support uh firefighters, police officers, military. Obviously, there's a strong military lineage, but Bear likes to give back. The brand likes to give back, and this year he wanted to do it big. So he partnered with Forgive.co and figured out a way that we could pay off $5 million of veteran medical care debt. So we started out with already forgiving 2.5 million before the weekend started. And then when we launched the weekend and the promotion, it was like a direct contribution of people going online and buying the product. That's what their money went to all the way until yesterday. So we reached the goal, which we were a little worried and had some plans for if we didn't reach the goal, but the entire team and like the ambassadors, everybody from like the top to the bottom, like to a customer, like everybody did their part. It was so cool to see everybody come out and support that. So
Yeah, I went and grabbed a couple of things.
my man. Yeah. I mean, how can you not like, and that's the thing for me, like leaving the military and going into BP, like a company that like truly values veterans. Cause all these brands, every brand in the hunting industry is like, yeah, veterans, like here's your 40% or 20% discount, whatever it is. And they make a post on Veterans Day, like, thanks for your service. But it's just cool to be on board with a brand that actually like takes action. Like it's not just Happy Veterans Day. It's like, hey, we're helping veterans. So
Yeah, dude.
yeah, it's kick ass. I love that. That's goals for us. Once we get to the point where I can give away 2.5 million, that sounds like a good mark for us. But
yeah.
it's doing anything. Like it's so I always cringe on Veterans Day. I'm sure you guys do too. Like,
Yep.
it's just like we sent out an email, like a thank you email, and then we extended the veterans or the discount because I have no money right now to give away. We try to do our different fundraisers throughout the year, but even like putting pictures of like us in the, because I wanted to I need to do a better job. Don't market that we're veteran owned very much. Like it's on there, but like we don't do anything. And
Mhm.
it matters. Like people give a shit about that. They want to support companies, and talking with the team, it's like we need to kind of put that out there a little more. Like I'm never going to be grunt style. Like that's not our thing, but like just a little
Yeah.
more flavor to it. But even putting the pictures, I'm just like, ugh. It just
No,
doesn't,
yeah.
it's just like I didn't do this for one. It was a job, and a lot of times we got paid way too much for what we did. And then we got paid way too little for what we did. It was kind of an extreme on one way or the other, but it just always makes me uncomfortable. But something like that to where it's not, because like I even started pulling back a little bit on my support, and there's some really good ones that do it out there, but like these veteran hunts,
Oh yeah. No.
like
They're
that there's so many shitty ones. So much of it's an excuse in a way that it's just there's, and I don't want to get into a rabbit hole there because there's a lot of really great ones that I've worked with, some great ones, and
Mhm.
it's kick ass. And so, but like there's so many people doing it, and I don't think it actually provides any value except for a cool memory for a dude.
Cool
And
memory. Yeah, it
paying
is
off like medical debt, that's like life changing shit for these guys.
yeah.
Like that is awesome, and I loved that.
Yeah,
I thought that was so cool.
I went through some of that. Like I worked with some veteran nonprofits that were like experiential, and it's a handout versus a hand up. Is Sloan Brown actually kind of coined that? He talked about some veteran nonprofits, and he was like, there's organizations that like it's a handout. Like they get to go on a hunt, maybe they make a friend out of it, but it doesn't really give them a hand up in life, right? Heroes to horses or heroes and horses, I think is what they're called.
Yep.
Those guys, like they do some life changing shit. They bring those guys to the ranch for like a month and
Teach them skills. Like
yeah, yeah,
that is so much more valuable than just taking a guy on a once in a lifetime elk or mule deer or a whitetail
yeah,
hunt. Like some of these, like some of them, like they're running like high fence operation, which is fine, and it's cool that they're doing that. I want to be very clear in what I'm saying here because it can get misconstrued. But it's like, what's the actual like back end value of that?
mhm,
What a lot of these guys need, and
yeah,
like learning skills, like building that community and being plugged into a community. I think that's what we need. Like
yeah,
that's my transition out has been seamless because I have the boys. Like it's actually better because I got to choose this crew. I'm not just
yeah,
stuck with freaking 40% of the dudes I never want to see again. Like you get in the army, like
yeah.
it's
It's funny because I just got back from a vet hunt 2 days ago.
look, dude, Evan
They're
is like
not. I'm not
Evan's
saying
crushing
they're.
them right now.
Yeah,
And like I told him, like he's got his Purple Heart, so he can go get all the. I was like, dude, you got fucking shot by an Apache. Like, go get your fucking hunts in. There's nothing wrong with it, but
yeah,
it was just for me and what our mission is. When I was giving money that we didn't really have, and then I was doing some of these things, I was like, I think I want to put. That's why we supported the Kirstie Ennis Foundation,
Yeah.
because they do some experiential one. It's not just vets and it's not just hunting, which I think is cool. They do stuff with kids. They do some stuff with women. It's kind of a broader, but then they're like teaching them how to do these pursuits, so then they can go continue it afterwards to give them an outlet versus just taking them, guiding them. And I think there's a nuance difference there.
yeah. There is, and absolutely not talking shit about veteran hunts or going on veteran hunts. Just from like a brand perspective, things like to support and put like and the brands that do support them, thank you. Like those guys, all the veterans going on those hunts and the people doing it, but they're freaking everywhere. Like it seems like every guy like and I've had some bad experiences working with them, watching guys get donations for stuff and then like not using the donation to benefit the veterans. Like
Yep.
it's like a way for them to kind of get a piece of the pie in the hunting space.
Yep.
And that's where I got kind of turned off from the experience based type stuff and like started really looking when like a nonprofit wanted me to work with them or do something with them. Like, well, what are you guys doing? Like, what's the program? Is there any long-term program afterwards? Or is it like this dude comes out here and whacks a deer and then goes home with some deer meat and a head, which is freaking cool. Totally cool. But yeah, I agree. So it was the Veterans Day thing, and like we did it last year. Obviously, I think we raised like 200K for all the various nonprofits that we support already. And then like the D-Day shoe launch, we raised $50,000 with the D-Day shoe. Uh, we sold those limited boxes. We raised $50K to pay for all those World War II veterans to go back over to Normandy.
Yes,
So I think it helped get 80 something World War II veterans back to Normandy. And then we had Bruno, who's now, he's the kind of overall in charge of Born Primitive Outdoor and Tactical. That dude's a savage in his own right, but he jumped in. He got to jump into, I think, Normandy.
That's awesome.
And he jumped in with a custom Born Primitive canopy. So it was freaking just cool to see them out there, and just like the way they represent themselves in the community, or we represent ourselves in the community. We're there for the veteran community. We're not there because, like, obviously we're veterans and it's near and dear to our hearts, but we're there for the veteran community. Like that D-Day event it wasn't, hey, look, Born Primitive's here. It's like, hey, look, like we're here and we're honored to be here because all of you men that are still living and still standing here, like, can't imagine the things he went through.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Let's before we got to wrap this one up, let's shift over into your goat hunt, because that was I followed along on all your stories, and that was a cool journey to kind of vicariously live through. So let's kind of unpack what that looked like. I was cracking up every time you were going down a steep ridge with your fear of heights.
Dude, well, one, I did not know I had a fear of heights. And I don't have a fear of heights. My buddy killed a mountain goat like the weekend after, right? And completely different unit. And I got out there and they were like, man, this is so terrible where we are. And like, they were a little like, this is not good terrain. And I was like skipping across it. So, and I left that mountain goat hunt feeling like a pussy. Like, I was like, I have a problem. And then I'm glad my buddy killed that goat and I got out there into that terrain, because I'm like, oh shit, I'm not a pussy. That shit was really that fucking bad.
It looked gnarly.
So we were in the Maroon Bells. I drew. What happened was my roommate Lance was like, hey, did you put in for your tags for goat and sheep? And I'm like, no. So I came up here to this office, sat at this computer right here that I'm sitting in front of, looked in the book and saw which units had the most tags, and just applied for those units for mountain goat and sheep, and couldn't believe I drew that goat tag with 5 points. So pretty low draw odds. But unbeknownst to me, they're trying to kill all the mountain goats in that general area, because they're pushing the bighorn sheep out. So they're really trying to frickin' knock down the mountain goat population, because the goats will move in there and push the sheep out of their home range. And mountain goats are not native to Colorado. They were introduced here. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until this year. I talked to a couple of former tag holders, and they had spoken. They were a little bit smarter than me and called biologists and talked to them and did all that stuff. And they kind of let me in on all the stuff the biologists were telling them. So we got in there, and it was like, I'm following Aaron, and Aaron has zero fear of death, like zero fear. Like, I'm not exaggerating. Zero fear. Watching that guy, the stuff that he was going up and over, and we had Dan was filming for us. There was a couple points where like Dan would stop and be like, I'm panicking a little bit. And I'm like, thank fucking God. I'm scared shitless. Like, what are we doing? I remember there's one specific spot. Aaron filmed us coming down off from it, but he went and was climbing around cliffs. And like, I'm talking, this guy was like hanging onto a top of a cliff ledge and like swinging over to the next ledge with a pack and a bino harness on. I'm zero fear of death. And he went over there to look for goats. And before he left, I said, Aaron, I don't know why you're going over there to look for goats, because I'm not fucking going over there. I don't care if it's the fucking world record or Colorado record Billy over there. I'm not going. Like, I don't want to die. So, but the Maroon Bells now, I now know why. And I actually talked to Cliff Gray about it. Cliff Gray did some guiding out there. And I was like, I know why they call them the Deadly Bells. And Cliff Gray was like, yeah, he's like, he did 1 or 2 seasons guiding out there. And he's like, I'm glad I didn't guide out there. Like when I don't know what happened to where he stopped, but he was happy he stopped. He's like, because I think that place would have claimed my life. Like it is some of the steepest, roughest country. Like, I mean, when it looks steep on a cell phone video or any video, you know it's steep because usually videos don't do it justice.
No, it washes it all out.
I mean, that video of me walking down with the goat on my back, you can see like that's a steep son of a bitch. So yeah, I left that hunt feeling got my goat. It ended up being a nanny that acted like it was a billy, but couldn't have worked out better. She was old and dry, but I left that hunt feeling like, man, I was really scared up there. Like I even said to Aaron, like I haven't been scared in situations like this, like real like fear for my life since combat. In combat, you don't really have time to think about it. There, you got time to think about it. You're like, is this step gonna be the one? But I left that hunt feeling like, man, I have like maybe I'm a pussy. Like maybe I really because Aaron had no problems, and then I went to help my buddy pack his goat out, and I hike up to where they're at. I see them, and they're across this rock slide, and I'm just cruising across. I was like, this is not like it was not bad at all. And I got over there and they're like, well, we don't want to go out that way. Like, see if you can drive your truck to the bottom and we'll hike to the bottom. Because we don't want to go back across that stuff. It was bad. And I'm like, what? This is great compared to where I just was. This is awesome. Like I was like surfing down the mountain when we were hiking out. Like it was so it made me feel good about myself at a minimum. Like, okay, it wasn't just me. It was definitely like that terrain was deadly.
Got it. So don't go hunt there.
Yeah, Maroon Bells Wilderness.
See, this makes me want to go there. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I want to go there.
I mean,
the gnarliest, shittiest, dude. I don't have the a rash. Like it's stupid. Like I should like I'm scared of needles, which makes no sense. I have no fear of heights whatsoever. I've never have. I don't know why. I don't have that like natural survival instinct. With it's not like bravery. It's just stupidity.
Yeah.
So I
jumped that country. I love that country. I think it's so fucking fun.
I jumped out of airplanes for over 18 years. I have a very real fear of heights.
Yeah, I did the same. I mean, I did the same thing, and it's the Maroon Bells is not the same. Like it's just not. It's a different animal. And the other thing that I learned real quick when I got out there, looking on a map, nothing looks far apart. But we're living at 12,000 feet, and because of how steep everything is, I was like, man, like if it was an elk hunt and we were down at 10,000 feet, it's easy money. But because of how steep it was to get up and over and on these passes and on the next ridge, like you got up to like we were hiking a half a mile out of camp and like, all right, like there could be goats over that next pass, but we have to drop. So you have to drop so much elevation to get over there safely. That like you were kind of glassing and you weren't hiking all over holy hell if you didn't see goats. So it's just super, super restrictive because of the steepness and then the amount of elevation you have to lose and gain to get around out there.
With goat hunting, awesome. With goat hunting being like, you know, a pretty coveted, hard to get tag, very, you know, we'll be lucky if if I get one in my lifetime. But for the folks that are putting in and it might end up drawing, what are some lessons learned? You know, because it's not something you really train for. You don't train to goat hunt unless you live in Alaska. So like what are some things you would do differently? What are some things you did right? Like what were those big takeaways from this trip?
Well, I didn't get to do a ton of preseason scouting because we were filming my elk hunt. And I think preseason scouting definitely would have helped. But the number one thing to do, especially if you're non-resident, you can't get out there, get on the internet forums and talk to people, especially if there's hunting seasons for goats in that unit before yours. Because people with goat tags and sheep tags, people are pretty foregoing, like they'll give away information because they know you're probably not going to get that tag again. So it's not like, hey, where's your elk hunting spot? Like I had a guy, my buddy Cody, his buddy the year before was in there. And that's actually how we ended up getting onto the goats we got on. He had a nanny tag in there and he sent me freaking Latin long of every billy goat he saw during his hunt. And so it was historical data. It was from the season before, but it ended up actually working out pretty good. But the other thing I would say is don't fucking quit, because we hunted for 10 days. The first spot we went into for 5 days and didn't get into them. And then we kind of hunted around from the truck and saw goats in spots that we knew for damn sure if we went and shot the goat in that spot, we would probably die trying to get to it. So we didn't go after it. And then and then we went to the third spot, but we did book horses. So we had a packer taking us in and out, which made it much easier. But just get a good lay of the land, have a good plan A, B, C, talk to people, previous season tag holders or even previous year tag holders, because those goats kind of like to hang out in the same spots. And then don't quit, and then be smart. Like there's so many times where like you could, like we saw what was definitely a really good billy, and like I wanted to kill that billy, but I knew there was no way we were gonna probably survive trying to recover him. So you got to be really smart and pick your shots.
Yeah, that seems to be a big part. I've watched like the videos where a guy shoots a goat and then it just falls like 200 feet. Just it's just a pulp at the bottom. And so like you never want that, right? Like so. Yeah. I think discipline is definitely a big piece of like being disciplined with like, okay, I know what my limitations are. I know what we can do, what we can't do, and like not deviating. Cause like if you haven't seen goats for 6 days and then you see some, like it's probably really hard to be like, can't do it,
Yeah. I mean, I watched when I was watching nannies and trying to figure out which nanny I was going to shoot on this ridge line, and they were on the very top of this ridge line. They were 1,200 yards away. I wanted them to come a little bit closer, and I wanted them to be on our side of the ridge line. But I was watching them, and we sat on those nannies for like an hour, just waiting for them to make a move to our side of the ridge line, because if we shot them on the top, they were staying on top, and it was going to be really hard to get up to where they were. It was steeper. It was a super steep slope to get up there. We would have had to walk all the way down the valley to get back up on top and high. It would have been a 2-day event trying to just get to where they were, even though they were 1,200 yards away from us in the valley floor. It would have been impossible. And then luckily a goat popped out behind us, because those nannies actually went over the other side of the mountain to where we were never going to get to them. So, and then we had to make a play on the goat that I killed.
Hell yeah. It's an awesome trip though. Congrats, man. It sounds like it was
cool trip. It was everything you'd want in like a hunting adventure, like snow, horses, steep, rough, like all of the struggle. So it was awesome looking back at it.
Like you said, you don't listen to hunting podcasts. I rarely pay attention to much hunting content, but for whatever like that, following along on that hunt, like it definitely I got bought into the whole thing. I was like, all right, come on. You're like, another day, no goats. Another day, no goats. I was like, damn, this isn't looking good.
There's plenty of videos of me like trying to inch my way down freaking 40-degree slope. So
your commentary was hilarious. It was good. Yeah, it was. I can imagine that would make you pucker a little bit going down. I mean, I've been in some steep country, but that was like, and then even more than this, the incline, it's the loose like shale beneath your feet. It doesn't take much to just kick that loose, and you're going for a ride.
Or if at one point the camera guy didn't really follow instructions. We were coming down this real steep rock slide, and Aaron's like, I'm gonna go first. Mike, once I'm at the bottom, I'll wave to you. You go once I'm at the bottom, right? And then Dan wave, and I was about halfway down, and Dan started coming down behind me, and I'm like inching my way down. Like Aaron was like jumping down it, like he had a snowboard strapped to his feet, and I'm like inching my way down, about halfway down, and Aaron's like, Mike, run. And I'm like, what? Like the shit you see in movies. He's like, run, rocks. And I look behind me, there's a fucking boulder the size of a stop sign that Dan knocked loose coming straight for me. So I got down it quick after that.
God. Yeah, you probably had some choice words for old Dan.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was cool, man. That's definitely I would 1000% do it again. But yeah, the Maroon Bells they're deadly. That's why they call them the Deadly Bells. They are definitely deadly. They've claimed a lot of lives. It's funny because Aaron, I didn't really understand the magnitude of it. I told Aaron I drew that tag, and he's like, "Oh, it's one of the biggest mountain goats I've ever seen in Colorado's in there." He's like, "Actually, a guy died about 7 years ago that I sent in there after a mountain goat. He died packing his goat out." So, and then I ran into the owner of Rocky Mountain Game Calls. Rocky Mountain or Mile High, I can't remember, but he makes elk calls. He's a really good elk caller. He had the same elk tag as me this year, and he had that goat tag, and he
Is it Tom?
Yeah, yep.
Tom, yeah, Mile High game now calls
Mile
it.
High, yep.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I ran into Tom. We had the same elk tag this year, and I told him, I got a little bit of time left to get my tag filled because I got a mountain goat hunt coming up. He's like, "Where's it at?" And then he told me his story. He fell off a cliff packing his goat out of there, dislocated his shoulder, had to call search and rescue to get him out. So it wasn't just in my head. Like, it is definitely, it's a dangerous place. So
yeah, people underestimate, I mean, that country, but even elk hunting, like you can get into some gnarly shit real quick.
mm-hmm.
And guys that are inexperienced, like, need to be real deliberate with how they're packing, what their plans are. Like, you can get into some shitty situations fast. But awesome, man. Well, you got anything to close this out?
Nope. I don't have any wise words. Add value. Figure out, for folks that are trying to get in the hunting space, figure out a way to add value to companies. Like, learn a tool, learn a skill, pick up a hobby, photography, writing. Like, there's a ton of ways to add value. Just figure out a way to add value to a company, because if you're trying to get in the hunting industry, just posting dead animals on Instagram isn't always, that's not going to do it unless you're Aaron Snyder or Cameron Haynes at this point. Like, everybody's doing that. So think outside the box.
The reason they can do it is because they've built up authority.
They built it up.
And that's the thing, is like, it doesn't matter what you know, it's who knows what you know. Whether you like that or not, like, that's what it is. If you want to do like the influencer thing,
100%. And Aaron and Cam both got their start writing. Like, Cam got his start in the hunting industry as a writer. Aaron got his start kind of in the industry. He was writing on internet forums, and then Outdoor Life picked him up to do some work. And so, like, they both got their start writing, right? And then Aaron went on to develop photography skills. Cam went on to develop fucking superhuman. He didn't develop them. He was just born with them, but like superhuman endurance skills, so add value. That's what I got for the folks.
It's good advice. What do you got, Kerri?
I don't know, man. What Mike said.
Add value. Kerri adds a lot of value to in my life, both as a friend and as a
podcast we got here. But yeah,
we're working on grooming you as a podcast host. Takes a lot of fucking reps. Like, we used to just get hammered drunk when we started this thing because we were so nervous to like hit record, and
it
takes a long time to get comfortable talking. Now I don't give a shit, but I used to. The only thing when I went on Kafaru, I was pretty nervous, which was weird because I've been on several, and like that was a big one. That was the biggest one I've done. And when I moved out from Benning to here, I didn't know anything about hunting, so I was like searching, and I found Kafaru Cast. I listened to it, like 24-hour drive, and then it was crazy. Like 2 years later, 3 years later, whatever it was, like being on the podcast was wild. Yeah. That was cool. Definitely appreciative to Aaron for that. But yeah, that's all I got, folks. Appreciate the hell out of you guys. Go check out that new drop. Hoochie Daddies are back. The Mountain Man tees. This is our strongest drop to date. Please go buy the shit because I need to clear it out because we're getting ready to move to our new building in Wyoming. So as always, we appreciate the hell out of you guys. We'll talk to you next week.